Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster.
Don't you understand, George? It's because you were not born.
Film church.
Well, a boy's best friend is his mother.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Good day, and welcome to Film Church Radio. This is the podcast that treats cinema as a religion. It's Sunday. I'm Lewis.
And I'm Brandon.
And we are here to talk about movies. Each week, Brandon and I alternate picking a film for us both to watch and discuss. However, it is the first Sunday of the month. So you know what that means, Brandon?
What does that mean, Lewis?
That means that we get to worship at the altar of another. And this week, we have a returning preacher, our good friend and film aficionado, Zach. Welcome back, Zach.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here.
So I chose this week's film. I chose the film Dead Alive, also known as Brain Dead, outside of North America. This film from 1992 is the third feature film directed by Peter Jackson, starring Timothy Balm as Lionel Cosgrove, Diana, I never know exactly how to say her last name, Peñalver, I don't know. She plays Paquita, and Elizabeth Moody as Lionel's overbearing mother, Vera. This is a horror comedy. And to me, it is just one of the grossest and most funniest films ever. It did for many years hold the record for having the most fake blood in any movie. It is silly and it is gory, but it's fairly lighthearted in its in a lot of its scenes, and I think it's actually a horror film that a lot of people who don't necessarily like horror films could actually enjoy. But also horror fans love it because it's gory as hell, and who doesn't like that? Fake blood splattering everywhere.
Exactly. And it's a really great film to kick off our horror season that we're going to be doing here on Film Church Radio just for the month of October. We are picking horror-related films. And Zach was kind enough to pick this one for us. And we're going to talk in depth about the film in just a little bit. And if you listen to the end of the show, you will know that Brandon is going to be picking our next film for us to watch. So stick around to the end to find out what we will be watching for next week, our homework. We'd like to say thank you to everyone who's been listening to the podcast so far and sending their love for the show. If you're new to the show and enjoying it, subscribe, hit the bell, be notified, interact with us on social media. We'd love to hear from everyone that's been listening and kind of what you think of the films that we're watching, what you would suggest that we watch in relation to the films we've been watching. If there's anything that we've missed, let us know. We want to see everything. We're across all social media platforms at Film Church Radio. We are also on YouTube, where this very show will be uploaded for you all to see our beautiful faces as we talk about Dead Alive. So come over there and tune in and watch us. Be great to see you. I mean, we won't see you, but you'll see us. So come over there. We'd also love for you to rate and review the show on whatever podcast service you stream from. Helps other people find the congregation, join us, and just add more people to the things that we're doing, which is wonderful. Normally, at this point, Brandon and I would talk about the films that we've been watching other than the main feature this week. But as we do have a special guest, we're going to mix it up a little bit. And Zach, what we're going to actually do is ask you a few questions about your film-going history and get to know you a little bit better as a film watcher. Okay. So the first question that I want to ask you, where did it all start? What was the film that brought you into the metaphorical film church?
As a very young child, I was really into stop motion animation. Yeah. I don't necessarily know that there was one film, but my earliest kind of leanings towards watching movies religiously was going to the video store with my mom, either every weekend or every other weekend. I don't remember. And I would just rent these weird stop motion films. There's Will Vinton directed a feature film called The Adventures of Mark Twain, which is a really bizarre claymation film. I love the movies of Henry Selick, like Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach. Gumby short films. There's a director from the 40s or 50s named George Powell who made these very, very bizarre animated, stop motion animated short films called Puppetoons that were actually made with wooden carved figures rather than clay. So they have this incredibly unique look that I've never seen in anything else. So to me, I think that was like the earliest really sense of being like a film churchgoer. Because I would just rent these same videos over and over, like on a rotation. But it wasn't until I was like 13 that I got into like movies, recognizing what like, I mean, those were movies too, those were films. But I sort of started thinking of myself as a film fan in my early teens. And that was really just linked to really a lot of like blockbusters, like stuff like The Phantom Menace and The Sixth Sense. But my parents were also moviegoers, and they had interests in directors like Robert Altman and the Coen brothers. So I kind of got a little bit from them, and then that's how I started going. Was I would go with my mom and dad to see these movies that like none of my friends were seeing. So
Yeah. That's awesome. And what is it that you look for in a film? Like, what is it that excites you about cinema?
I am like a style first sort of person. I need the film to have a look. It's got to have style visually, and in auditorially. It's got to look and sound good. To me, it's like it's an audio visual medium. So I do like a lot of kind of weird films that are sort of more less story focused and more visual and audio focused. Story, even though I fancy myself a writer, is like plot is one of my least important things. But I like character. Character is important to me too. So, but kind of the first thing I look is the movie has to look like something I would enjoy staring at for 90 minutes to 2 hours or however long it's going to be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I like that. I like that kind of boiling it down to the visuals of it, because that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I feel like the older I get, the less I care about plots.
Oh yeah,
and the more I care about just like character and visuals and interesting. I mean, obviously the subject matter is important, but it doesn't necessarily need like I don't need the guy getting the girl at the end, kind of your basic everyday, like what screenwriters tell you or what like film teachers tell you, like this is what your screenplay should be. This is what is what a movie is. It's like movie can be anything.
Oh yeah. Well, but on that note, I also still appreciate a sort of like nicely crafted screenplay, which I actually think the film we're talking about today has lots of setups and payoffs. Which is like that a sort of a I think that's a thing that people sort of obsess over is like film's got to have setups and payoffs, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But in the film we're talking about later, I think it works.
I think that it's linked to kind of something we were saying last week, Brandon, about how watching a film once is great, but then watching it multiple times, you really get the payoff. I've been reading a biography on Alfred Hitchcock recently, and I've just finished the part about Psycho, and how when that was released, all the reviewers were like, yeah, the story's okay, it doesn't really grab you. But then after they had seen it multiple times, they were like, yeah, the story's not really that important. Like it's what he's actually doing with the visuals and the characters that's like stands out from the rest.
Yeah.
And and I agree with that. That's why I'm trying to go back and watch films multiple times so that I'm not as interested in the plot. I already know where it's going.
Yeah.
There's something else to see there. Because I love a good story. So if I can get that part out of the way, the film kind of adds extra layers for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So if you were to go to film heaven, Zach, what would that look like to you? This is where we get to the very church, the film church adjacent questions.
Lean heavily on the church stuff, right?
That's what we are.
It would probably look like a very packed video store, and not a Blockbuster, a video store that there was a video store in Austin that I would go to called I Love Video, that had they had a director wall. So certain directors, if a director had enough movies, they would get their own section on the director wall. And but it was just 2 stories and massive, and just had everything from kids movies to adult films to anything you could think of. And even though when we think about cinema, a lot of times we think of the theater going experience. I definitely got I'm of a generation where I got my start into film was really through renting videos and then later DVDs and watching DVD special features and that sort of thing. So going to a video store and renting just a video store that's got everything would be heaven. Now it would be hell if I'm not able to play the DVDs.
There's no medium to actually play anything in film heaven.
Right.
You can just look at the boxes. You can
look at the boxes.
The kind of, are you talking about the kind of video store where they're stacked up so high you can't reach them? They're like up to the roof.
There's a ladder that you've got to ask someone to come and use a little
swinging around like Belle from Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it.
That's just going to be Lewis's house one day.
Oh yeah, I know.
That's where I'm heading. If I could add a ladder now, I'd do it. I do have a step stool that I have to use to get to the top shelf.
Okay.
Get in there.
Tidbit. Yeah, exactly.
One step at a time.
So if you were a preacher to a film church other than Dead Alive, what film would you show that you think would be is the epitome of film?
I would probably show Boogie Nights.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, because it is a redemption story at its core. It's about someone rising and falling and redeeming themselves and coming back in the end. And it has this very wonderful, triumphant ending that I love. But I love that whole movie, so I could just sit and I mean that would be my Bible. Would be we would have a copy of the screenplay and we'd read along. The as we're watching the movie. So
yeah, I love it.
It's perfect for church, really.
Yeah. There's nothing in there that could be condemned.
Nothing at all. Nothing that a churchgoer has not seen.
Talking of church going and love, I guess. What film would you show if you were officiating a wedding, Zach? What film would you say is the best example of love? I know this is a curveball, throwing it right in.
I don't know. Maybe we'll go with Annie Hall for that one because it's such an incredibly unconventional romantic comedy. It's very easy to just sort of pick. I guess I might also show City Lights, which is also an unconventional love story, but has one of those just endings that gets you in tears. But if we're talking about showing something at a wedding and showing something about love, I like to avoid rom-com cliches if possible. That's and I certainly City Lights existed before cliches. The cliches of the rom-com existed. So, and Annie Hall it's a love story about a breakup, which is kind of, I don't know. There's something there that is maybe makes you appreciate your love a little bit more.
Yeah, it's oddly uplifting in a way. It's kind of like
it's not an unhappy movie.
No. it's the whole it's better to have loved and lost than never loved at all.
Right. Yeah.
Which is very you don't see it a lot. That's a great choice.
And if I'm officiating a wedding, it's going to be very Jewish, and so we need to have as much Jewish representation as we can.
Leading into our last question, and this is a biggie. Who would you say, Zach, are your film gods? Who are the ones that are just all-time greats in your opinion?
I don't know. It's very difficult to narrow it down, especially over the years. As my taste has changed and evolved, there are different filmmakers that I grow interested in, others that I lose interest in. Two filmmakers currently working that I've really been watching and rewatching a lot of lately are David Cronenberg and Paul Schrader. Whether or not I consider them film gods, I don't know. But I'll say this: I don't know. This is I don't know if I'm not moving in on another question here. If I say if I were in heaven, who would the first film? But I think you asked Jason that or something about.
Yeah, that's where when we talked to Jason, the conversation went there. Kind of, if you're in heaven,
because when I was listening to that, I was thinking of it, and I'd say, you know what though, I would love to sit down and have a drink of whiskey with Ozu, and maybe then have smoke a cigarette and drink a cup of black coffee with David Lynch.
Yeah.
I think that sitting down for those two, I don't know if you'd call them meals, but sitting down for those two occasions, I think would be something that I would love to experience.
And also, I'm pretty sure 2 completely different conversations.
Oh, yeah.
It would be, you would not know where that conversation was going for either of them. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. I love asking these questions because it's kind of the things that I've always wanted to know about you, Zach, personally. Just like, who is it that you hold in such high esteem? And we get the indication when we talking and stuff, but that's wonderful. So thank you for answering the questions. We appreciate it.
Of course.
So now we're going to move on to our main feature, which is Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, from 1992. Zach, do you want to describe the film for us?
Sure. I prepared a little introduction about the movie.
Perfect.
Hope I don't sound too much like I'm reading when I read it. I may have to cover up your face with this document as I do so. But anyway, okay. Dead Alive, or Brain Dead, depending on what part of the world you are in or which version you watch. We meet Paquita. She works at a shop, and she meets a local boy named Lionel, who she believes is her one true love. There will be one romance, and it shall last forever. And but Lionel has a mother problem. He lives under the thumb of his controlling mother, Vera, and everything goes south for Lionel when a bite from a Sumatran rat monkey transforms Vera into a disgusting zombie. Lionel struggles to keep his zombie mother and her growing brood of undead companions a secret until we reach the film's blood-soaked, flaming Oedipal climax.
Perfect.
And love does conquer all in this film.
Yeah.
Paquita does get her romance.
She sure does. Thank you. I mean, that was wonderful. Painted
Beautiful
the picture really well. Yeah, it was like I was reliving it.
Thanks.
So this was obviously a film that you have seen numerous times.
Yes.
Brandon, was this the first time you watched Dead Alive, Brain Dead?
It sure was, yes.
Same
Which
here.
is surprising because I'm a huge Peter Jackson fan and also a fan of zombie movies. So
yeah.
Historically, it has been a difficult movie to find.
Yeah.
So
what about my fault?
Yeah, I hadn't seen it either. I mean, I was more. I mean, I haven't seen anything pre Lord of the Rings from Jackson.
Okay.
Which I know is sacrilege because Brandon, one of your favorite films is Heavenly Creatures, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes, Heavenly Creatures is one of my favorite films, and also I love Bad Taste. It's such a fun first film. Obviously, he did he's been making movies since he was a kid, so he did lots of like Super 8 shorts and stuff, but Bad Taste was his first like, feature and like got distribution kind of a thing. And just low budget horror esque kind of film. And it's incredible. I have a Bad Taste t-shirt that I meant to wear today, but I think it's maybe in storage or something right now, so I couldn't find it. But yeah, I think I've pretty much watched everything Peter Jackson has made except for I don't think I've seen Meet the Feebles. And I haven't seen the documentary he did. The war documentary.
Yeah.
Or,
where They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah, where he restored the footage and stuff. I haven't seen that, but everything else pretty much. I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan. I grew up watching those. I was 11 when the first one came out, so I was a diehard fan of those movies. And then even like when King Kong came out, I loved that movie. And also appreciated The Lovely Bones a lot and really liked it a lot. So I've been following the guy a long time. So this has been one that's been on my list for a while that I've wanted to watch.
Yeah, I added Bad Taste and Heavenly Creatures to my watch list after watching this. So that
not
probably
Meet the Feebles.
Not yet. I think that was probably the next one after those two. I know that that's got a bit of a checkered following.
It's gross.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
Bad Taste to Meet the Feebles. Zach, how did you come across this film? Where did this kind of make itself known to you?
Well, to a certain extent, I actually knew about it for a long. Well, I was vaguely aware. I was aware of the video cover for a long time.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, I would go to the video store when I was a kid, and I would actually see, and I'll hold my DVD copy up for you. That's the video cover, which is sort of a loose recreation of here. That's good. Sort of oh no, it keeps disappearing.
Oh no, the copy is disappearing.
Let's try and hold it
The
there.
film gods are taking it. It's not in circulation anymore.
A woman goat seeing her mouth with a little skull with eyes inside it. Sort of a loose recreation of a scene that does occur later in the film with the baby and Rita, I think is the character's name.
Yeah.
But I actually first saw the film when I was like, it was after The Fellowship of the Ring had come out, and I used to watch the Independent Film Channel a lot. So I was like 14 or so, and they used to, the way they, like the IFC, when IFC actually stood for the Independent Film Channel, now it doesn't, they would, the way they would advertise a movie that was going to be playing is they would basically just show like a minute of the film rather than like a trailer or something. So I first saw the minute that they were showing to advertise that they were going to be showing this movie, and it was the scene in the park with the baby. And so I was like, what the hell is this? And I always had a computer in my room, so I would go onto my computer and it was like, this was directed by the guy who did Lord of the Rings. So I felt like I just had to watch it.
Yeah.
So this is actually the second Peter Jackson movie I ever saw.
Wow.
And so I watched it on there and I loved it. And lucky enough, I was at the time sort of like starting my journey as a collector of DVDs. So I found it on DVD and got it. The DVD has nothing on it but the movie. Even the disc has like,
it's just clear.
The disc has no art on it. The disc is just and it's not a reversible disc. It's just plain old disc. So it's just the movie. And it's also been released on Blu-ray, by the way. But the Blu-ray has been out of print for like that. It's basically it's like it's been released on every format, but then just goes out of print, and now you can't find it. So, but that was my first experience with it. I just fell in love with it.
Yeah, I feel like the poster is something that as soon as I pulled it up before I watched, I was like, yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it's like you've definitely seen it somewhere.
Yeah, it's pretty iconic. So But yeah, I mean, I've always kind of heard about Peter Jackson's like early career
Mhm.
and I mean, you could say cinematic leap from
Yeah.
like these films to the kind of the thriller of Heavenly Creatures to the
Mhm.
just cinematic beauty that is Lord of the Rings, you know. And I always thought that this would be a very homemade. You know, I don't know why I just assumed that these early films would be like feel just homemade, but this really doesn't.
No, not at
It
all.
it feels, you know, we open on Skull Island, which
Yeah.
is, you know, a great homage to
Yeah.
King Kong and what was to come. But you can already tell that they're just having such a blast making this film.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
know,
And
it's
I mean, there's visual effects from the get-go. I mean,
mm,
uh, the airplane when it's in the air is a model, and
yeah,
there's model work of the city with the trolleys and stuff like that. Um, I was actually thinking you brought up a Hitchcock film a few weeks back, the one that has blackface in it, that
yeah,
had, and I've seen that once, and I remember liking a lot of the technique in that movie, which
mm,
included like model work for
yeah,
like a car chase or something like that, right? So yeah, this movie does not feel homemade unless you think of using models as homemade, but it's incredibly epic for what a small film it actually is.
yeah. Yeah, agreed. I mean, we go from Skull Island and we come back to this quaint little town,
Hmm.
and then all hell breaks loose due to
Right.
the um, is it the rat monkey?
Yes,
What's
Mm-hmm.
the Sumatran rat
that's
monkey,
it?
which is
Yeah,
done through stop motion.
yes, exactly. Which
Yeah.
is a fantastic sequence in the
Hmm.
zoo up until the rat monkey's demise. It was great to watch.
Hmm.
Just
It's
kind of
crazy to
seeing,
me how, like, when you watch stop motion, you know it's not real.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just like when you
yeah,
watch like CGI, you know it's not real. But stop motion is so fucking freaky
hmm
and
yeah,
disturbing looking. You know what I mean? Like, it just adds so much more, especially for horror movies, so
Yeah.
much more eeriness than you could
Hmm.
ever do with CGI,
yeah.
you know?
Agreed. It just gives the creatures just another worldly feel. You
Mhm.
Yeah.
know, they're
Yeah.
already kind of different to the surroundings, whereas CGI is too much effort is made into making them look like they belong.
Right.
Which,
Mhm.
you know, if we watched Jason and the Argonauts and they looked like they belong there, it wouldn't have the same effect.
Hmm.
So yeah, that stop motion really works.
And it's tactile. So even though
Yeah,
it doesn't look quote unquote real, uh, y- your brain still recognizes that it's a physical thing, that it's got hair on it or whatever.
Mhm.
yeah,
Whereas uh, a lot of times CGI, I mean, obviously CGI has gotten a lot better in our lifetime, but CGI still oftentimes feels like you're looking at something and you're just like, that there's nothing there.
yeah,
That this was drawn in.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I appreciate that tactility. And with the models in this, I mean, everything was essentially real, in this
yeah,
movie. All the visual effects, and I don't know if we'll get into this later or go into it now, but as I was watching it this time around, I was looking at some of the set pieces and thinking like, God, that must have just been such a pain in the ass to like have a setup for like near the end of the movie where the guy is where the one zombie is basically being sucked. I mean, he's being chopped up by the lawnmower, but it
yeah,
looks like he's being sucked into it. And
Mm.
it's like you've got to create this setup of a lawnmower that's spraying fake blood, and he's lowering down into it,
Yeah.
and
yeah,
it's just for that one shot. And
yeah,
obviously that's how movies work, but it's like it's not just we've got the clean lawnmower prop and the bloody lawnmower prop. It's all of these other little pieces for a single moment of how a character gets killed or whatever.
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
Well, even going back to the beginning, when they leave Skull Island and you see the plane flying off, and they've got like the shot of the plane in the sky.
Right.
I was like, how does this look so good?
Yeah.
Like, I know it's not. I know this is like a model or something,
Right.
but damn, like, and that's just an easy shot for them.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know how if the model work was done by him, but Richard Taylor, who did all of the VFX for the Lord of the Rings, is basically I think he's like the head guy at Weta Workshop. I think.
Yeah.
He did a lot of the effects in this movie too. So Peter Jackson had been working with him all the way as far back as this.
Right.
So these guys know how to build stuff and make it look good, which also may just be like their era of filmmakers, like that they grew up watching certain kinds of movies, probably on TV, where that is how those effects were done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also the like the horror magazines and stuff that they would read, I think also had a huge influence,
and
they would go into detail on how to do shit.
Right. They would show you how to, and that's how he learned how to make all of the masks and creatures for Bad Taste. Those were baked in his mother's oven.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead.
Go ahead, Brennan.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I kind of knew, you were saying, Lewis, like you kind of expected it to be, a little more like homemade feeling. I kind of knew what to expect going into it because I have seen pretty much everything else that Peter Jackson has done, including Bad Taste, which was, I don't know how many years before. I know Bad Taste took a long time to make.
It was released in '87, so I don't know how long it took to make, but roughly the mid '80s to the late '80s, and this is early '90s.
Yeah, so I kind of knew that it was gonna be that I was gonna love the movie in a lot of ways, but it still managed to affect me in the same way I think that anybody going into this movie blind would have been affected by it, because I got like kind of sick feeling like all of those things, like even being just like a big horror fan and like a fan of, I mean, I love Evil Dead, like I've watched those movies so many times, and this was like Evil Dead dialed to like 50 million.
Yeah. I was going to say, there's so many influences in this that you can see from Sam Raimi and, other filmmakers of the early to late 80s that were putting out these kind of more independent horror films, I guess. You can see kind of a lot of those influences. And did anyone else get a feeling of John Waters while watching this film? There's certain parts, especially in the house, where I was like, this is very like the most disgusting people alive. When they're eating the custard, and the blood squirts into. I was like, this fit, and the whole church scene looks like it's right out of early Waters. So
I didn't actually make that connection, but that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I didn't either. But when you said that, the first thing that popped into my head was a detail that I love in this is Lytle's uncle. That every new scene with him, he has more like herpes spots on his face.
Yeah.
Now, in the first time you see it, he just has one, but there's more the next time he comes over, and then the last time with the party, he's got like a whole little just sort of collection of herpes bumps, scars, whatever. Sores, I guess you'd say.
One of the characters where you're like, man, I really hope that nobody dies unnecessarily, but I really hope he dies.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I would almost say that having those expectations of it being homemade, like going into the movie with, I don't want to say lowered expectations necessarily, like not in the sense that you thought it was going to be bad, but thinking like, oh, this is gonna be schlocky, it's gonna be corny, and then it really exceeds all of that.
Yeah.
So it maybe helps to go in with those expectations to help kind of bolster that surprise of how good it is.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, I think I was laughing within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And kind of gripped from that point on,
Yeah.
And then I think it was the point that I was like, okay, this is actually going to be a lot better than I thought. Not that I thought it was going to be bad at all, but was when the scientist or the zoologist, I'm not quite sure what he is. He gets bitten 3 times by the rat monkey, and then we see his hand, arm, and then the axe coming in on his head. And I was like, wow, this actually looks really like it, the arm isn't a different color to the rest of his body.
Right.
This actually looks real,
Yes.
Which was great. So from then on, I knew that anything that was going to happen was going to look great. And it does. I mean, all of it. And there's so much.
Yeah. He's a New Zealand zoo official, which is why he
Okay.
carries a machine gun.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh man. And I love the as you were talking about, like, the special effects and just the lengths they went to. The head in the blender. Like, I had to rewind the head in the blender.
Yeah.
I had to like rewind it and be like, that, like, when the blood splits, so that's like a real head.
Yeah.
And he's
that's another one. It's
around.
like there's obviously another blender that is just for this guy to a prop to stick that guy's head in.
Yeah. The lengths to kind of make this look and, like, to, I don't know, get across what they were trying to do is outstanding.
Yeah. I think it's really so I watched a short kind of documentary on YouTube. It was made by like a local news crew in New Zealand. I don't know if you guys maybe had a chance to like find anything like that, but you can find it on YouTube, and it was really interesting watching in the time that it's made, because obviously now New Zealand is like the film commission in New Zealand and the filmmaking in New Zealand is a lot bigger, because of Peter Jackson, and then now also Taika Waititi, who obviously got his start in New Zealand and is huge now. But it's really interesting because at the time that they're making Brain Dead, the commission has reduced their funding has been reduced by 70%. So they're basically, saying like film in New Zealand is not important.
Yeah.
And and so they're and Brain Dead is like the big film that's being made in New Zealand at the time that this is happening. So they're like interviewing people on the set, and they're interviewing Peter Jackson, and it's just I don't even know what to think about. Like, I have so much. I already had a ton of respect for Peter Jackson, but for him to be like in the middle of making one of the goriest, grossest movies I've ever seen in my life, to be like, no, this is important, and this is art, and we need to be supporting filmmakers. And they were also like questioning if he was, because he's the biggest filmmaker, or at least he's the biggest filmmaker in New Zealand even in 1992. He's the one making the most buzz. But they're asking him, if this is going to de-incentivize him to stay in New Zealand, or if he's going to end up going to Hollywood or whatever. It's just really cool to like watch that, and then know the history of what ends up happening after that he brings this huge boom to New Zealand of filmmaking, and the awareness of New Zealand, because they're also asking about like, what is New Zealand culture, and what what does it mean to be a New Zealander, and what does this mean to let Peter Jackson represent New Zealand and their and the culture, and he's making these, like, they call it splat stick
horror.
It's really good and interesting. It's still kind of like it's just mind boggling. So like
Yeah.
to watch that guy fight so hard for what he's doing and get people on board. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
this was I think like a little over $2 million to make.
Mhm.
And to just the actors that are the actors that they interview on set to sit there and all this makeup and stuff, not really knowing what the
Yeah.
hell kind of movie this is, but like this
Yeah.
one lady is just like, I just have to trust him. You just got to trust him, and just to have that much faith in him, but also for him to just have that much faith in itself is like, it's just crazy and awesome.
Yeah. I'm sure inspiring as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just to, know that what you're doing is the right thing,
Yeah.
regardless. It's great.
Yeah.
I didn't get a chance to watch that, but I'm definitely going to try and find it out now.
Yeah, I'll seek that out. It would have been a great special feature on this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Is
well,
on-
I sorry, I did find one more, like another interview that he did maybe like 4 years ago, and he said there's 4 films that he's like trying to focus on doing like new
Yeah.
big releases of,
Yeah.
and this is one of them. I think this Dead Brain Dead / Dead Alive,
Yeah.
Bad Taste, Heavenly Creatures, and Meet the Feebles. I think
Yeah.
he's trying to do a re-release. But he's so like he's so detailed in the process that it's
Yeah.
like I don't know how long it's going to take.
Right. Well, and also he's doing that in addition to directing stuff.
Yeah,
he made these
exactly.
two,
Yeah.
the Beatles documentary and the World War I documentary. I think he was working on these 4K upgrades of those first 4 movies sort of on the side while he was making those. And
Yeah.
the Beatles documentary in particular clearly took, I mean, that's a huge investment of his time to get that made. So,
Yeah.
and it's on the one hand, it's hard to get mad at him for that because
Yeah.
he's a director and his tastes are changed. It's like Dead Alive, Brain Dead. These are movies that he made 30 years ago, and he's got interests of things that he wants to make now, and you can't stop him from doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit like Cameron. There's been there's so many times that Cameron's like, "Hey, don't worry. There's going to be a 4K of True Lies, or there's going to be a 4K of this or that," and it just never materializes.
Yeah,
because he's too busy, filming 4 Avatar movies back to back. So
that's right. Filming just started recently.
Yeah.
Of part 4.
Insane. Yeah,
Because 2 and 3 were shot back to back.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued. I mean, not to get too off topic, but Avatar didn't light my world up. So I'm intrigued to see where it's going from here, especially with the investment and the everything. It's going to be crazy. So yeah, crazy to watch. But anyway, back to Peter Jackson, the person who we are talking about. I mean, like you said, there's so much of this film that just really, really works. And the fact that it never takes itself too seriously. But what I really liked is the fact that the actors don't ever kind of are winking at the camera. You don't ever feel like they're in on the joke.
Right.
Everyone plays it so straight and so like, this is actually happening, that it just adds to the comedy.
Right.
Especially Lionel.
Yes. Even the goofier characters, like Peter Jackson's cameo as the mortician's assistant is just so silly. He's like got his eyes crossed and he's eating a sandwich covered in formaldehyde and green goo and with his like buck teeth. But it none of it ever feels out of place. Even and the priest doing kung fu doesn't feel out of place.
Yeah, it's just a shame that he goes too early. I really thought that we would end with him and Lionel back to back, drop kicking people over banisters, and
And I think
shooting
that
crucifixes.
that's like maybe one of those moments in the film too that get where I think I become aware of how invested I am in
Yeah.
in the film, where when that head lands on his shoulder, I get this little like tightening in my gut, like where I'm like, no,
Yeah.
I get so no, not
Yeah.
him too, and I, and that's I mean, it's a real emotional experience of reacting that way, and so the film kind of, and this is like the brilliance of Jackson, is that he fools you. You go into this thinking it's silly or schlocky or whatever, but you get into the characters, you develop these feelings for them where you don't want to see the priest turn into a zombie.
Yeah.
Although the priest gets plenty of action after he becomes a zombie. So
Yeah. Yeah. Randomly.
yes.
Well, it's the same with Paquita. When she gets nibbled, you're a bit like, oh
Oh
no.
yeah. Yes.
That is...
And it's like a whew when it's just
Yeah.
a pair of teeth stuck
Yeah.
to her.
That was the point that I was like, I don't think anyone's going to get out of this.
Uh-huh.
Like where you kind of, your mindset changes, before
Yeah.
you're like, oh, they'll walk off into the sunset. But I was like, I think it's just going to end with them all being attacked,
Uh-huh.
becoming zombies. But spoiler, it doesn't.
No.
We do get a happy ending for Lionel and Paquita. He's finally shrugged off his mother.
Right. And I mean, you definitely don't expect the giant
Mom.
yeah, I don't even know.
Yeah.
She's like some sort of a dinosaur zombie.
Yeah, that I'm telling you, dude, like this movie fucking like to me, this is the movie to end all zombie movies. Like after
Yeah.
seeing this movie, it's like, why would you ever need to make another zombie movie or watch another zombie movie? Like this goes as far as a zombie movie could ever fucking go. And like even down to like he literally thought of every way that a zombie could die or someone could get bit or some kind of gross whatever. He did every single thing that he could think of and put it in the movie to the point where it was like, it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, what, like, this has got to end. Like, I can't take any more of this. And then, and then like getting like this sick feeling like, oh my God, like I'm getting nauseous. Like, this is so much. But then still managing to like make me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
In the next second. And then it getting to the point with the ending that you're talking about with the mom dinosaur zombie thing and just being like, I mean, I don't even know what to say. It's just like incredible.
Yeah. It is. I mean, and that the shot of the mum Godzilla thing falling through the roof head first is just, it's going to live with me forever.
Oh yeah.
Because it's so artificial but so like anatomically correct.
Yes.
It's just phenomenal. It's just like it's like the cherry on top of the cake,
Yeah.
It just finishes it off perfectly.
And a lot of those setups must have been forced perspective too.
Yeah.
With Jackson's famous for his use of it in the Lord of the Rings, but for a lot of those shots, that's a person in the suit. So, I mean, I look at them and I can't exactly figure out the geography of how it's for forced perspective, but it must be,
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things in here that I'm like, how did they pull that off?
Yeah.
There's the party guest that gets pulled through I think it's the dumbwaiter or the petition, and he's just got he's just a skeleton from like the waist down.
Yeah.
Which is again another phenomenal kind of visual in the film. The baby, it's obviously when it's running, it's a smaller person in a costume.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's great. And am I right in believing that the whole park scene was shot after? He kind of added it in as a bit of a breather.
I mean, that's
Oh.
what the trivia says.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was shot after, I don't think. But yeah, it's just kind of this thing that's there on its own, like
Yeah.
separate from everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
it's like a little vignette.
Yeah.
It says that they finished the film under budget, which is like how, you know, how like every shot is a special effect, like a unique thing that
Yeah.
you've got to figure out and get, you know, figure out the logistics of and get the props and make it work. And then get the film under budget, and so he used the money that they had left over to spend 2 days in the park shooting that scene, and then he apparently has said later that it's his favorite scene.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't know if it's my favorite scene.
No,
But I mean, I'm not Peter Jackson, so it's not like it's
Yeah.
my baby.
The baby is so fucking disturbing. It's like
Yeah.
it looks like, you know, the sloth from the Goonies, but
Yeah.
a baby version and more
Yeah.
terrifying.
And its laughter is
I know.
is disturbing too.
Yeah. You just never know where it's going to come from. It just keeps disappearing around corners
Right.
and then appearing at people's heads
Right.
and like jumping at them and stuff. It's just, yeah, it's crazy. And it does that. So the baby is the thing that like rips through someone's head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of where the poster, like you were saying earlier, it's like that's where it
sort of
I guess
inspired by that.
Yeah.
But,
that was, I mean, to me, that was the best, but one of the best special effects.
oh yeah.
It's wonderful.
Because it's like there's a hidden cut in there somewhere where it's her, the actor,
Yeah.
and her with the hands, and then somewhere there's a cut to the prosthetic of the head being broken open.
Yeah.
It's
It's
great.
almost like they had a, you know, like a round table meeting with the special effects people, and they were like, everybody write down every single effect of a zombie doing something
Yeah.
that you can think of. And then they got this list of like 250 things. And he was like, let's figure out how to do
Do 'em
every
all.
single one.
Yeah.
Because there's like a zombie's like head getting smashed into a light bulb and then it's like glowing.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
what?
There's the guy that's too forceful with his spoon and it comes out the back of his head.
It's like there's no more ideas.
Right.
Like, there's
Well,
nothing.
and I love the continuity between that main stable of zombies, where they keep changing in some way. Like, you know, but those details stay throughout the whole movie. The nurse dies because Vera sticks her fingers like into her cheeks and breaks her head off. So the whole movie, she's got these finger holes like in her cheeks, and her head is flying back. And Lionel throws something into her head, so that's stuck there the whole movie. Then she bites off the lips of the priest, so he's got these exposed teeth through the whole movie. After that, you know, they keep dismembering these characters in ways, and then it never loses track. It's like, we're gonna find something to do with that. You know, the punk Void losing his legs and losing his guts, which becomes another character, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think in that scene that you're talking about where the nurse gets her head knocked off, practically, is where you can see the touches of someone that is very filmic, kind of like he knows like the image he wants to produce, because we get that reverse shot of the nurse kind of coming at Lionel and the camera is upside down, as if you are seeing it from the nurse's eyes. And it's those little touches that I'm like, that this is like elevating it higher and higher. It's kind of, it's really aware of what it's trying to accomplish and achieving it every step of the way, you know.
One thing that you guys were talking about earlier with the mother, I just now thought of it, or thought of it when you guys were talking about it. You know, Lionel has his mother, and then what's the other character's name? Paquita
Yeah.
as her mother, right? Oh, I guess her
That's her-
father is in it.
Well,
I was
she
gonna
has a
say-
father, and the old woman is actually her grandmother.
Okay. I was wondering if there was like some kind of like subtext there about like mothers and absences of fathers, but I forgot that the father is in it. But he's like a total dick.
Right.
But I guess
Yeah.
that's everybody in this movie.
Yeah. Everybody but the main two. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, and buried in this, there's a murder mystery with the mother and the whole the dad that drowned.
Yeah.
But then
Oh,
he
yes.
didn't. He was drowned in a bathtub.
By her.
She like
By her.
Yeah.
Which is just like, by the time that gets to it, you feel so bloated on the zombie stuff that you're like, okay, okay, that makes sense, I guess.
Yeah.
But the first like 15, 20 minutes of the movie sets up everything. It sets up like Lionel as kind of bumbling. Like the first thing you see him do is he's in the store and he picks up an apple and like the whole pile of apples collapses.
Yeah.
And he has his mows the lawn, and we get that great shot underneath the lawnmower of the blade. And he's at the zoo and he sees the water and he has his little PTSD episode about drowning. It's like all that there. Then in the end of the movie comes back,
Yeah.
as I said, with the payoffs, setups and payoffs. The script is so just like wonderfully written, and it was apparently written for a very long time. Like they wrote this film for years before they actually went into production of it. So they were probably working on the script while they were making Bad Taste at some point, and certainly while they were making Meet the Feebles, they were in the process of writing this. So
Yeah.
it shows just that it doesn't need another draft.
Right,
No, I don't. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, is this your favorite Jackson film then, Zach, or is this? Lord of the Rings are hard to beat. I know that, but
Yeah, it probably is. I do love the Lord of the Rings films a lot, and his first two splatter films are enjoyable. If I guess if it's anything, it's certainly to me it's on par with the Lord of the Rings trilogy in terms of my enjoyment of it. So yeah, it probably is.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I don't think it's a film that I would have necessarily got round to if you hadn't have picked it.
Oh,
Yeah.
So
good.
Yeah.
Glad I picked it.
Yeah, thank you.
I think the thing stopping me has been just like not being sure of what version to watch, because like the version that we watched was the hour 43 minute something like that version.
The extended.
So that version of the movie is the original cut of the film.
Okay.
That's like in North America, it's usually referred to as the international version, because that's the version that came out in New Zealand.
Right.
When the movie was picked up for US distribution, I don't know who the distributor was. I think it was someone small, but they basically told Jackson, this won't get an R rating, so you have to cut it down. So he created an 85-minute cut that was released in the US in theaters as an R-rated cut, which I had assumed that version kind of never like found a life on video, but somebody posted it on YouTube. I've never watched that version. I wouldn't want to. But when he was doing that, he realized that there were some moments in the film that he felt like he could lose. So he created the video that I have, like the most widely seen version, I think, in the United States is it's the unrated cut. So it's 97 minutes long, hour and 37 minutes. And it's the same movie that we watched, but it's just more tightly edited. Because it's it's just like 6 or 7 minutes shorter, and a lot of it is because I'm most familiar with the 97-minute version. So watching the longer one, there were moments where I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't in the movie that I saw. It's like the opening scene, the New Zealand zoo official says a few extra lines that get cut out.
Yeah.
They cut when Paquita's on her date with Roger, and she slips away from him and goes to Lionel's house, where they show some partying scenes in this version before we see her walk in, and I think it just cuts to her walking into the party. They sort of skip some of the extra party stuff in there. Very little of the scenes that got cut were gore scenes. So it's not it was not, the 97-minute version is not designed to make the film safer for audiences. It's just Jackson felt like this scene could go by this could be paced better. So that's a version I'm most familiar with. I've always wondered what he'll release when he releases this on 4K, if this version's not going to see the light of day. I've heard that he prefers that one, though, that he made it after the fact, realizing, I could clean this movie up a little bit. So I'm not sure what's going to happen when it finally gets a nice physical media release.
Yeah, it would be great to get the differing cuts kind of on a disc. Disc 2 is, I don't know, the theatrical cut and the unrated cut or whatever, So I mean, fingers crossed we get to see them all, because it is interesting to see just what directors leave in and what they opt to take out.
Yeah.
Especially when it's a film like this, I'm like, just give us more. Just pile it on. I don't care.
More gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the difference is it's basically pacing.
Yeah. Which I'm sure if you've seen it, like you yourself, Zach, have seen this so many times, that the pacing kind of does work better.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't mentioned that this is the quote unquote goriest film ever made.
Right.
Apparently it has got the most use of fake blood in any film
up until 2013.
And
it
that
was surpassed by the Evil Dead remake.
Oh,
really?
Yes.
Okay.
Wow.
Doesn't that rain blood at one point?
The whole soundstage is just like they've got one of those rain machines with just blood coming out of it, and the climax of that film. But this movie had the record for all that time, from the time it came out till
20 years, 21 years.
Yeah. And it is a lot of blood. I mean, the lawnmower scene, it is spraying.
And they still make out. I'm like, what are you doing? Stop.
Oh, yeah. There's there's a great moment where the little intestinal creature has the amulet, and she rips it from him, and she puts it around his neck, and she gives him a kiss, and then she steps away, and there's this long string of goo that you can see.
Everything's got to be gross.
Yeah, it is. But it's still, I think the only moment that gets me, makes me go, ugh, is when Lionel unwraps his mother's wound. Almost said womb, which that's the end. That's the end of the movie.
Freudian slip.
But he unwraps her wound, and he's patting it with a cotton ball, and it's squishing, and that's the only part that makes me go, ugh, I wish I wasn't eating something right now.
Yeah, for me, it's the blood or the pus in the custard.
Oh yeah.
Oh, when that happens, I was like, I had to look away. I was like, I can't watch him spoon this into his mouth.
I'll tell you, actually, one of the grossest parts is in that scene, and has nothing to do with gore. It's when Lionel starts shoveling his beans onto the other lady's plate. Because I've got a thing about if you've taken a bite of something and you're like, here, have some, I'm not taking it. But if you've taken a bite, I'm not taking a bite. I'm not sharing a straw, sharing silverware. Those beans have touched his fork, which has been in his mouth. They belong on his plate, not on hers.
I love that that's the grossest thing to do in the whole
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I love this movie makes gore. I like gore in movies,
Yeah.
and it does take. It is interesting that it's usually like the weirdest or simplest things that actually kind of gross me out in a movie like this. But it makes gore look so fun to me.
Yeah.
Like I kind of want to get splashed with that that stuff.
It's the way the limbs are kind of, I don't know, like choreographed as well. Because when the lawnmower's going, you can see like arms fly out and like parts of legs and stuff. It's just, it's very well done, to make it look like they're all really plowing through people.
Yes.
I love that reverse shot of when he gets through and turns around and he's literally just taken like a line of people out. He's not even close to taking them all out.
Yeah.
It's so good. Oh dear.
Yeah, I mean, for like, I don't know what the history of these actors' careers were at the time, but I mean, they sold it,
Yeah.
Timothy Balm, is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
He's great. I forget, there was somebody he reminded me of that I was going to mention, but I can't think of who it was now. But yeah, he's amazing. Everybody's amazing in the film.
Yeah, he's I think he's mostly a TV actor in New Zealand. I think he was like a star of a soap opera there.
Yeah.
And Diana Penhel-Ver, I think everything else she did was in Spain. All of her other acting works in Spain.
Yeah.
And everyone else is just I think they're just
locals,
stalwarts of New Zealand, like theater and television and stuff. Some of them have appeared in other Jackson films. Vera, the mother, who's Elizabeth Moody, she plays one of the Sackville Bagginses in the extended edition of The Fellowship of the Rings.
Nice.
At Bilbo's party, she's sniffing him out to try and get his money.
Oh.
and
yeah.
Roger, the guy who plays Roger, the love rival, he's Isildur from the prologue. Yeah.
No.
Wow.
Something Sinclair. Let's see, what's his name? Harry Sinclair. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch this again. Yeah, that is him. Holy crap.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then Stuart Devaney, is that how you say it? Stuart Devaney, that played Father McGruber or McGruder. Was
probably Davini. I don't know.
Davini. Yeah. He was obviously one of the highlights of the film. Incredible.
Oh yeah.
Reminded me of he was like Draco Malfoy.
Yeah, I guess I can see.
Yeah.
Got that stark white hair. Yeah, he I love the way he delivers just about every line too. Says when he's like says something like then if Lionel doesn't show up, I'll deliver his mother to the arms of the Lord in his absence. He sounds very theatrical and says it in a way that it sounds like this is how this guy talks.
Yeah. I got a lot of, if you've seen Hunt for the Wilder People, Taika Waititi's film, when he plays the vicar.
Oh, does he?
It was like Taika does. You could see
okay. Yeah.
It's like he's playing this character again.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of delivery and cadence to his voice and stuff. Maybe just New Zealand filmmakers were on my mind, but that definitely jumped to the forefront.
Well, I mean, Taika's definitely a fan of Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
who isn't?
Yeah. I mean, they know each other and stuff. I mean, during COVID, when people were doing like Zoom reunions and stuff, they did a Lord of the Rings Zoom reunion, and I think Taika Waititi was like the host.
Oh, awesome. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah.
But
Also, some
Cool.
Lord of the Rings, at least one Lord of the Rings filming location. The
Mm.
Skull Island at the beginning is it's like the passage in Return of the King where they find the army of the dead ghost
yeah,
army.
Yeah.
yeah,
I would
Yeah.
love to see the kind of the reveal of the natives compared to the reveal of the natives in King Kong.
Oh
Because I
yeah.
can remember that scared the heck out of me when I first
Yeah.
saw it.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
they are terrifying. It's like they're
Yeah.
crawling out of the walls.
Right.
Yeah.
They're
You
like
know.
inhuman in that.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and I was like, look how far he's come.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
when that happened, I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And a cameo from Forrest J. Ackerman. Brandon, earlier you were mentioning the monster magazines. Forrest J. Ackerman was like the founder of the monster magazines.
Oh, okay.
Like he did a magazine called Famous Monsters of Filmland, and I think most magazines that kind of came after that were just
Yeah.
kind of knocking off his work.
Mm.
And so he is this kind of revered figure among horror directors and directors who do monster movies, whatever.
Yeah.
Because he like wrote the whole magazine himself. I think like every issue he just
Wow.
did it all himself. And he has a cameo in the zoo. I want to say he's reading a copy of his magazine, but
Okay.
I think he's
Nice.
also there's a part when like after Vera kills the rat monkey and everyone's reacting to it. I think he's the
Yeah.
guy who takes a picture. He's like, ugh. And then,
Yeah. Yes, I love that part, dude. Like that.
Yeah.
You just I forgot about it, but that was such a small detail
yes.
where it's just like thrown in there, like
yeah.
ew, and then takes a picture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just such a
Beautiful.
great comment on like I don't know, the world we live in. Still,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that not every extra, but a lot of the extras and every supporting character in this film is very, very memorable, which is also something to admire because there are plenty of movies that filmmakers that don't necessarily think that they need to create memorable characters for the shopkeeper or whatever, and Paquita's father with his one scene is like, who cares about love? What about money? Stuff like that. It's like all these characters are,
Yeah.
to me at least, just very, very memorable,
Mm.
even if they're only in the movie for a minute.
Yeah, it's very cartoony in a way. Like everybody is kind of I don't
like
know how to say it. Like a dialed up version of
Yeah.
a real person.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, but they are memorable. You kind of come away being like, oh, that woman, and that person. It was, yeah.
I think one of my dreams, if I ever go on to make a film, is to cast Timothy Balm and Diana Peñalver as a couple in
Yeah,
a something small, whatever, it doesn't matter. I just
that'd be
watched
great.
a movie called Valley Girl from the 80s with Nicolas Cage, and it has I can't remember the guy's name, but he's one of the main characters from Apocalypse Now. Like this, maybe he's the surfer or the chef. I can't remember.
Yeah, I
But
know who you're talking. He's in a lot of stuff. Like
but so
yeah.
he plays this girl's dad, and then the actress playing her mom is the actress who played the Playboy bunny that he's hooking up with in the Playboy bunny scene in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah.
So it's just like that is so like such a weird detail to go to those lengths to like cast them as a couple, but
You should cast them as your parents.
yes, I would love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
She's just so cute, and he's great. No, they're both of Lionel and Paquita are like one of my favorite couples.
Yeah.
Someone should write fan fiction about them. I'm not going to do it. I don't like it.
You should show
I thought
this
that's where
at
we
a
were going
wedding.
to. Yeah. Yeah. True
What's that?
love
Oh, I
sunk
should
as
show
well.
this at a wedding.
Yeah.
Maybe you're right.
Get a load of the mother of the groom. Am I
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And the wedding cake could be just like this gory, bloody, I don't know.
It
Just
could
a
be
bowl
like
of
the
custard with little red bits in
just
it.
a little bit of red.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Has anyone else got anything they want to add about this film before we start wrapping up?
I don't think so. I think I said every weird little thing that I wanted to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's such a it's such a fun ride. You know, you kind of forget that it's a horror film in a way. And
Yeah.
probably that's what, you know, he was going for is it's just a blast. And not at all what I was expecting.
Yeah. It's an adventure film, which is what he
Yeah.
is known for.
Specializes for, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I will
Yeah,
say
for
this:
sure.
when Peter Jackson was accepting the Best Picture Oscar, he cracks a joke that says something like, "The Academy overlooked Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles, probably rightfully so," or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. The Academy were right to overlook Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles. He doesn't say anything about Brain Dead or Dead Alive. So maybe
Yeah.
there's something there that his faith in this film, like you were saying, Brandon, and this behind the scenes, whatever, he believed in this film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe he does think that this film should have gotten some Oscar recognition. I don't know.
It is definitely art.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
I mean, and if you think about his trajectory as well, I know that the first film took a while to kind of get going, and it was kind of more, you know, cooking the masks in his mother's oven and stuff like that. And then Meet the Feebles was. Am I right in thinking that it wasn't exactly what he wanted to do?
Yeah, I don't know too much about the production of Meet the Feebles. I think it was like just gonna be like a 30-minute like TV special, but then they got like extra money from Japanese investors, and so then it became a feature film. I really don't know a whole lot about what his feelings on that movie are. It is just as impressive as this though, because it's all puppets and seeing what they are able to accomplish by doing it with all puppets when they don't have the money that a Jim Henson workshop has is very, very impressive if you can handle the subject matter.
But this is like a true auteur. This is him finally like doing what he wants on the budget that he's got, you know.
This does strike me as probably that like first, like he perfected it, what he wanted, which is also maybe why he moves away from the splatter genre after this. You know, he made like some sort of a faux documentary between this and what's the or maybe it was after Heavenly Creatures, but I mean Heavenly Creatures is such a big departure from this, you know, and that's the trajectory. And then The Frighteners, even though it's still horror comedy, it's a studio movie. It's still very different territory. So
well, I mean, it's like once you create the greatest like splatter horror film ever, like you can't top it. There is no topping it. There's like that's why I said it's like the zombie movie to end all zombie movies. Like, why would you ever need to make another zombie movie after this? Coming from someone who wrote his own zombie screenplay and is desperately trying to get that made, I'm like, Jesus. But
also, I would like to shout out the score. I really like the music in this film. Especially like the main love theme between Paquita and Lionel. It's really sweet. It's like music I would just listen to, you know, on my own.
It's interesting that you point that out because I do not remember any of the music. I think I was, which is probably what you want, you know, sometimes with a film is like you don't want to be like, oh, there's the music, you know.
Right. And I have watched it many times. So
I'll have to pay attention to that the next time I watch it, which I will return to this film again.
Yeah. Excellent.
Same here. Perfect. Well, this is the part where normally Brandon and I would guess what we each rated it on Letterboxd. But as we have a special guest, Zach is going to do the honors. He is going to guess what Brandon and I rated this film. as Brandon said last week, I have a very particular rating system. So who knows what I rated it.
Okay, so Lewis, I know you didn't rate it a 5 because you don't do that. Now I'm questioning my confidence. I'm going to say, Lewis, I'm going to say you rated it a 4. And Brandon, I'm going to say you rated it a 4.5.
All right.
I did rate it a 4. Yeah.
I did rate it a 4.5.
Wow.
What do you like? Listen to the show or something?
This is always how it goes.
Lewis's grade will probably go up the more he watches it.
Yes.
And yours might too, Brandon. But yeah, I don't know how, Brandon, I don't know how liberal you are throwing out 5-star film, 5 stars on a first viewing. So
yeah,
I do it sometimes.
Yeah,
this one I want to give it 5 stars so badly that I'm sure I will the next time I watch it.
Yeah.
But it's literally the fact that like I still have like a little bit of nausea left over from watching the film, which is like to the film's credit, I think. So I probably should give it 5 stars just for that fact. But I like could not sleep last night after I watched the film. I was like tossing and turning, like thinking about like intestinal zombies and like
babies ripping heads through and
like and I like struggle with like motion sickness and stuff too. So it's like when that like nausea hits me, it's just like I start like sweating and I'm like, oh God. Like
wow.
And it's surprising that this film did that because I feel like I'm so desensitized to like gore and violence that like I can't believe like I knew that this like the reputation this film had, but it still like blows my mind that it was able to just like seep into my skin.
That's good.
Yeah, that's great.
It did its job.
That should be your review there on Letterboxd. Would have given it 5, but had intense nausea. Well,
wow,
good job, Zach.
Yeah, like holy
we
shit.
are predictable.
You got us.
I was worried about Lewis. I was like, Brandon gave this 4.5. Lewis, I was like, oh, not so sure, but we're gonna go with 4.
Yeah, it was a good guess. Yeah. Perfect. Well, now that we've finished talking all things Dead Alive / Brain Dead, Brandon, are you gonna reveal what everyone is going to be watching for next week?
I am going to do that, Lewis. So this is our horror movie month, or I don't know, what are we calling this month?
Darnish Horror Month.
Darnish Horror Month.
Darnish?
On the last episode we got into some pretty weird places.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought maybe it was like an English thing.
Maybe.
The Bogs of Darn.
It is now. So this film is in the theme of the Darnish Horror Month. It's a film from 1982 directed by the legendary George A. Romero. I think I maybe saw parts of this film as a child. I'm not really sure. I'm really interested to watch it again to see if any like weird memories come back to me or nightmares. But it is Creepshow.
Oh, fantastic.
From 1982.
Yeah. Is that like an anthology horror film? Am I right in thinking?
It is it?
Yeah.
I don't know. I really don't know anything about it.
Awesome.
The poster looks badass.
It's not like now they do anthologies where they have different directors and writers make each one. The Creepshow was just directed by the whole thing's directed by George A. Romero, and I think Stephen King wrote the whole thing too.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Nice.
But it is an anthology.
Love Stephen King. That's fantastic. Great pick, Brandon, and one that again I might not got around to. So thank you for picking it up and suggesting it. Before we go to the outro and wrap the whole show up, Zach, thank you so much for picking this film, coming on, and just enlightening us with your conversation.
Yes,
every time you're on the pod, it just gets better and better.
It's a pleasure to join you guys.
We love you,
thank you so much again. Yeah, we do. Yeah, you're a honorary preacher of the film church.
Ordained.
That's right. Yeah. But that does bring us to the end of the show. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Film Church Radio, and you can follow us individually on Letterboxd. Brandon is at Salmonscope, and I am at Walker Lewis 3007. You can keep up with what we've been watching. We also have all of our back episodes streaming on all good podcast platforms. You can hear us talk about Morbius. You can hear us talk about loads of other stuff. Dress to Kill with our friend Zach. Loads and loads and loads. And if you want to leave us a rating review, we would love it. So please do. But all that's left to say, Brandon, your mother ate my dog.
Not all of it.
Say your Film Church prayers. See you next week. Amen.
Amen.
Amen.